Lovely day everyone! I am your friend, your tropa, kachikahan, kadaldalan, kakwentuhan. I am Shara. Say, you already have your podcast out there. You recorded, edited, uploaded, pero huwag kang mag-alala, pag-uusapan natin yan dahil today's topic is all about why it is so important to focus on gaining podcast listeners, and we'll also be sharing some of the best ways to gain listeners for your podcast. So, let's dive right in. Okay, so bago ang lahat, pag-usapan natin why it is so important to focus on gaining podcast listeners.
What was the reason? What was the reason?
Simple answer is, without the listeners, the podcast will not be successful. Let's be honest here, diba? We make podcasts to be heard. We have contents to publish. We have ideas to offer. Therefore, isa sa mga goals natin as podcasters is to gain listeners. Pwede kang magkaroon ng sobrang gandang content, sobrang interesting na guests, sobrang mind-blowing na insights, pero if no one is listening, what's the point? Keep this in mind, okay? By focusing on gaining podcast listeners, you are investing in the long-term success of your podcasts. So, number 1, promote your podcast, diba? The easiest way to have people listen to your podcast is to just tell them. Share it with your friends, your families, classmates, workmates. Possible na less than half of them will actually listen to your podcast. Pero sis, listeners na yun. Especially if nagsistart ka pa lang, you get 10 listeners in your first episode, that's a good start. By the way, you have to set realistic expectations. Don't expect thousands of listeners after your first episode, unless celebrity ka na to begin with. Pero ayun, tell people to listen to your podcast. It will not end there, ha? Share it to people you don't know as well. What do I mean by that? How will you do that? Share your podcast sa iba't ibang social media platforms. You can even create a separate account for your podcast. For example, sa Instagram, you can create a separate Instagram account for your podcast para yung feed nun is puro about sa podcast mo lang. Hindi kasi masyadong mapapansin kapag like yung personal account mo yung ginamit mo. Kasi syempre, yung mga tao dun is mga taong kakilala mo lang din. You can still share there, parang yung unang sinabi ko, pero kasi ang goal na natin this time is to reach a bigger audience. So, sa separate account mo na yun, you go all out. You post every day, you post stories every day, you tweet every day if you're on Twitter. Keep on engaging with SOCMED people online, and then you can direct that traffic towards your podcast. The goal here is to make people know that your podcast exists. Second, be consistent. As much as possible, mag-set ka ng schedule kung kailan lalabas yung mga susunod mong episode. Gusto mo once a week, twice a week, twice a month, monthly, ikaw ang bahala. What works for you, you do it. Kapag kasi consistent ka, may aabangan yung listeners mo from you. Say for example, yung favorite kong podcast, they upload episodes every Mondays and Thursdays. So ako as a listener, alam ko na tuwing ganong araw, meron akong aabangang new episode from them. Kapag kasi random lang, your current listener will not be able to know when to expect new episodes from you. Pwede naman, i-on nila yung notifications, pero keep in mind na not all of them will do. And not all podcasting platforms offer that feature. Personally, guilty ako for not being consistent. Just ko, when I had my jobs, I was not able to upload for more than a year. So, don't do that. Fortunately, continuous pa rin yung engagement sa podcast within that time frame. Pero deep inside, I know that it could have been more if I was just consistent. So, be consistent. Third, do not overstretch your episodes. Ganito kasi, when you plan your episode, di ba, meron ka ng idea kung gaano kahaba yung gusto mong episode. Wala namang specific na kailangan ganito, kailangan ganyan, kailangan 1 hour and 30 minutes. Hindi naman. Nakadepende yun sa'yo kung gaano kahaba yung gusto mo. A thing to keep in mind is if hanggang dito lang talaga yung content, huwag mo nang banatin ng sobra just to make it fit yung length na gusto mo. Ang mangyayari kasi niyan is mapupuno lang ng fillers yung episode. In a very millennial term, mema. Mema ka na lang, ganun. You will just make it less interesting for your listeners. So instead of attracting them to listen to your next episodes, parang you're pushing them away, ganun. Ano naman, kung 10 minutes lang yung episode, kung hanggang dun lang talaga eh. 'Di ba? If you want longer episodes, choose topics na malaman. Alam mo yun, yung marami kang ma-share, marami kang ma-explain. Pag maikli lang talaga, huwag nang ipilit. Tandaan, kapag ganito lang, huwag na ganunin. Ano pa? Pang-apat, invite guests. Especially if you're a solo podcaster like me, it can get boring sometimes, 'di ba? Sarili ko lang yung kausap ko, ako lang mag-isa yung tatawa. So it would be nice to invite guests over. I personally haven't invited anyone yet kasi alam nyo naman, if you've watched my other videos, yung setup ko, it's not for guests talaga, 'di ba? I only use my phone. Actually, meron akong mic. Bigay sa akin ng boyfriend ko, kaso isa lang yun. So like, pag may guest, share kami sa mic, gano'n. Ang weird. Pero pwede namang magawa ng paraan. Like, for example, you'll do it online. Tapos, yung guest mo, meron siyang separate audio tool. Especially kapag podcaster din yung guest mo. So, it's really possible. Maganda pa dito, it's a win-win. Kasi it's like you're promoting each other through that collaboration. So, like, pag in-upload mo yung podcast na yon with him in it, yung audience mo, pwede maging audience niya. And at the same time, ganun din, vice versa. So, yung listeners niya, who might not have heard about your podcast before, kapag na-upload yung episode na yun with you in it, pwede kang magkaroon ng listeners from his audience. So, dagdag listeners na naman yun. Dapat talaga nag-i-invite ako eh. Just parang yung video na to, tip para sa akin, tapos binabounce ba ko sa inyo kasi hindi ko ginagawa. Basta maniwala na lang kayo. Charis. Hoy, ginagawa ko kaya tong mga toys, except lang dito sa pag-i-invite ng guest. Pero gagawin ko nga. Yun lang. Yung sa consistency, consistent kaya ako nun. Napatigil lang talaga kasi hirap kayo maging working student. Hoy! Nagdrama! Anyway, number 5, use audiograms. Nabanggit ko na kanina na malaking tulong sa podcast mo if you're present in other social media platforms. Pero the question is, anong i-upload mo? Aside from posting your podcast posters and telling them that a new episode is out, you might as well add audiograms in your posts as well. Okay, so pag sinabing audiograms, ito usually yung mga videos na may naka-overlay na waveforms or transcriptions. Pwedeng both. So, ito yung example.
We would have to draw a line between being opinionated and simply being an asshole. If you share your opinions because you want to understand things better, that's okay. But if you are doing it because you want to make other people feel inferior, or you want to discriminate them because they are not knowledgeable enough.
Okay, so ayan, kagaya nung sa example na pinakita ko, pwede siyang picture lang na may audio, tapos ang nilalagay ko lang is waveform and transcription. Yung iba naman, di ba merong mga podcaster na naka-video sila? So, pag ganun, pwede hindi na sila mag-audiogram, tapos ang i-upload na lang nila is snippet nung buong podcast or noong vidcast? Vidcast ba yung tawag ngayon? I don't know. Basta yon. So, basta, ang kailangan lang is magkaroon ka ng parang trailer for your new episode. Pag hindi naman ganon, basta you cut an interesting part of your episode, convert it to an audiogram, and then upload it. Just make sure na short lang ha. Kasi kapag nilagay mo na lahat dun sa audiogram, ano pang ipupunta ng listener sa podcast mo, diba? Make them want to listen to your whole episode through your audiogram. I'm thinking siguro pwede akong gumawa ng another video, tutorial kung paano gumawa ng audiogram. If you like that, comment down. If hindi, edi hindi. Lastly, make sure there is at least one CTA per episode. What's CTA? Call to action. So, kung sa YouTube, merong like, share, subscribe. Sa podcast, meron din ganon. Like, share, follow, give us a rating, ganon. When adding a CTA, make sure na it is easy to follow, hindi masyadong overwhelming. Okay, wala namang mali sa like, share, follow, pero I personally think that it will be more effective if meron kang isang CTA, isang specific na CTA na pinapagawa mo sa isang episode. For example, sa isang specific episode, you ask them to leave a review about your podcast. Sa sumunod na episode naman, you ask them to send you a DM ng personal stories nila na related dun sa episode mo. Tapos sa susunod na episode naman, you ask them to send a voice message na pwede mong i-feature sa susunod mong episode. So again, that's something that they can look forward to, diba? So ayun, those are 6 things on how to make people listen to your podcast. Nakapag-notes na ba ang lahat? Kung hindi, eto na rin. ibibigay ko na rin. Ayan, pause to read. Paki-screenshot po. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, next item. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, no? If you've reached this far, thank you so much for watching. Ayan, more listeners for all of us, no? And do not forget to listen to my very own podcast as well, Chill Chika. Once again, this is your friend, your tropa, kachikahan, kadaldalan, kakwentuhan. This is Shara. Tama na.